These are three of my watches that doesn't make it in the rotation, and it's on purpose. Not because I don't want to wear them, but I'm just worried that I would lose them or damage them even more. I consider these as my treasure. I have a Rado, Timex, and Tissot. Each has their own story to tell and memories to share. You can also see the evolution of their sizes, from the smallest, which is the Rado, to the biggest, which is the Tissot. And it's interesting that in this era that we are in, watches are reverting back to its petite and olden days of smaller wristwatches. Starting with the Rado, this used to belong to my late grandfather, which was passed down to my dad, then my sister, then back to my dad, and now it's in my possession. And I got it with pure determination and persuasion. This is an automatic Rado Diastar. They are still in production, and this particular watch is still working. I sent it back to Switzerland to see if the bracelet can still be salvaged, but unfortunately no. I would have loved to wear it every once in a while. I could put an aftermarket bracelet, but I prefer it to be as original and complete, just like how my grandfather has worn it. As far as I know, this was his only wristwatch, and you can tell by how the polish are all gone because of the years, if not decades of use. And I think it looks even better with a brushed look. It's not as flashy as it used to be, but I like it the way it is. What's important is, it still works. Because somehow, the sweeping of the second's hand brings back all the memories. It's hypnotizing and relaxing. It's like the continuation of someone's life, but stored in a tiny piece of metal that reminds us of how that person has lived through the memories that they've shared with you. Amongst the three watches, this is the only one that doesn't work anymore. It's a quartz Timex. I got this as an elementary graduation gift from my parents, or at least that's how I remember it. It's been so long that all I know is I've worn it until after I graduated college. How do I remember? Because it would always block the hair on my arm. I would wear this loose and never thought of having it resized. Didn't know it was possible back then. I've also had it fixed multiple times and got it checked recently in the hopes that there is one more life left in this old timer, but it couldn't be saved. I wouldn't have used it anyway. It just sits in my watch box. This was my very first stainless steel watch, the watch that has subconsciously put me towards the path of watch collecting, and a humble reminder of where I started with my watches. And for a kid, this was a complicated watch. It has an alarm, date function, a tachymeter, and 50 meters of water resistance. Not bad of a first watch for a kid. And the third one is this Tissot PRC 200. This model is still in production, but it now comes in 43mm, which is a bit too big. This was my brother's watch, and I remember when he got this watch. I've always wanted to have it. It took me forever to persuade him to give this to me. I love that it's a chronograph, has a date, and it is 40mm in diameter with 48mm of lug to lug. Just the right size for my wrist. My brother is one of those people who takes care of things properly. That's why this is still in perfect condition, and I've recently just changed the batteries. My brother has worn this all throughout college and after, and I would always ask for it whenever we would meet. I think it looks great and the bracelet is comfortable too. I can still put this in the rotation, but then again, I'm worried that I'd lose it or damage it. But I do wear it at home sometimes, just cause I love it, and also seeing or wearing an old or vintage watch that has sentimental value or has a connection to your loved ones brings out an emotional satisfaction that cannot be compared to the expedient joy you feel wearing a brand new watch without any stories to tell. And with regard to vintage watches, I do like them. I like the thought of having a watch that's been around, carrying stories and scratches from different people. Stories that may be true or not, or even not knowing anything about where a certain vintage watch comes from. The mystery alone is interesting. The problem is, I am not very careful with my watches. I am right-handed and I wear my watches on my right wrist. It's a scratch bonanza when I wear them. So this Rado that I have is as close to owning a vintage watch as I'll ever be. And I know its story. I am part of it. And I just have to make sure that one day, one of my watches will be interesting enough to the next person who's going to own it.